French, but shalom, greetings to you all. As the old song says, on the 8th day of New Year's, my true love gave to me. Well, okay, there is no 12 days of New Year's song. So let's just pretend that there is. Either way, welcome to day 80, a 12-day makeover. And today you give yourself the gift of transformation. Who would you like to be? What do you imagine, think, tell yourself, see, feel for your life? Whatever it is, could be yours. Nothing you can be that isn't what you're meant to be. It's easy. Friends, today is the day to examine what you carry that you cannot let go of. What do you take personally? How else can you take it? Is there anyone you still need to forgive? Other than yourself, of course. Are you judging yourself too harshly? It's a lot to think about, but it is makeover time. But before we begin, let us send out healing energy to our great friend and supporter, Hillary. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. Bless those in need of healing with the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit. She is a true whirling dervish, one of the most loving and beautiful people, and the world needs her up and about. And as more years ago than I would like to remember, Melanie sang about the world needing beautiful people. Beautiful people never have to be alone, because there will always be someone with the same button on as you. Include them in everything you do. They may be sitting right next to you. Beautiful people. Get well, my dear. Now this week, we're going to move even further into that strange dermatological disorder section of the Bible, as we have the second half of last week's Parsha, and the first part of it is about lepers, and the second is about genital emissions. That seems more like a biblical medical treatise, as it talks about one who was in her menstrual impurity and one who was in emission, for a male and for a female, and for a man who will lie with a woman who is impure. Now, when you look at some of the books that made it into Scripture and some that did not, you just have to wonder. This week we have part 2, Metzara, leper. Leviticus 13:1. The Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, should a person have on the skin of his body an inflammation or a rash or a shiny spot, and it become the affliction of skin blanch on the skin of his body, he shall be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of his sons, the priest. There you go. Skin blanch. For centuries, Tzara was translated, or should I say mistranslated, as leprosy, but now more properly as skin blanch, a whitening of the pigment. And as I said last time, it will explain certain things a little better, in fact, maybe a lot better. The first sign God gave Moses back in Exodus 4:6, and the Lord said further to him, now put your hand into your bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and he took it out, and behold, his hand was leprous like snow. And he said, put your hand back into your bosom. And he put his hand back into his bosom. And when he took it out of his bosom, it had become again like the rest of his flesh. Now that's the Chabad version, the Orthodox version, and very typical of most translations. Okay, so put your hand in your robe, kind of like Napoleon, pull it out, show it's white, put it back, and presto changeo, it's back to normal. I guess Moses was one of the first great prestidigitators, the David Copperfield of his time. And friends, Miriam's punishment in Numbers 12:10 was the same. She is turned white when she complains of Moses' African wife. But once again, it is translated as leprous. All of the older English translations represent the Hebrew tzara as leprosy. But modern scholars are virtually unanimous in rejecting this. In fact, from a historical perspective, there's almost no evidence at all that leprosy was present in the Near East before the Hellenistic period. In most biblical occurrences, tzara is associated with this ghastly white loss of pigmentation, and therefore the term skin blanch is much more appropriate. But what is important, and I know you all did notice, once again, my friends, in the event of illness, a trip to the priest is in order. Ooh-ee, ooh-ah-ah, ting-tang, walla-walla, bing-bang. Ooh-ee, ooh-ah-ah, ting-tang, walla-walla, bing-bang. And I bet Ellen knows that one too. I personally like the Alvin and the Chipmunks version. Leprosy never made sense to me. What kind of sign was it that God would say, show everyone how diseased your arm can get and then show them it is fine? Well, that sounds a little bit more like a threat. Do what I say or else I'll bring disease upon you. Okay, that is kind of what God actually does say, but that's another story. But here what we have is, once again, the purpose of this book. Leviticus 13:4. When the priest sees it, he shall declare him unclean. By declaring him unclean, the priest has imitated creation again. The division, the separation, as he separates the clean and the unclean members of the tribe. It is the impurity, the separation, part of the larger issue of categories. Holy and secular, pure and impure, which is the dominant recurring concern in Leviticus, and pretty well all that it is about. And if you think this is as simple as a cold, think again. The ramifications of being declared unclean can be huge. The priest, and the priest alone, declares, unclean, unclean. All the days that the affliction is on him, he shall remain unclean. He is unclean. He shall dwell apart. Outside the camp shall his dwelling place be. Talk about segregation. Okay, now there's a possible mistranslated wordplay, and the word is netek. Usually translated as scab, but it means flakes, like dandruff. And perhaps the whitening flaked off, as the recovery occurred, to show that the unclean was becoming clean again. Something, again, only the priest could declare. But this whole thing is about separation, segregation, not belonging, being visibly different. It's about discrimination based on appearance. Whether due to illness or just being different. Now that's still a part of our fabric of society today. But we can still learn from this to be sensitive to the added distress, embarrassment, and vulnerability that's felt by those who suffer from illnesses that do affect their appearance. A very important lesson is going to be brought up shortly. As all lessons in Leviticus, the instruction manual for priests are by law. And it's about not putting things in the way of the blind. And man, is that important. This is not just about physical blindness. Some days it seems most of humanity, and I use the term carefully, are pretty blind to each other, to every living thing we share this planet with, to our great home and its cosmic place. And we can go that extra step to bring back those who are excluded. Leviticus 14:2. This shall be the instruction for the leper in the day of his purification. Really? Instruction, of course, means law. So here we have a law for the leper. A law. They take him to the priest again for the priest to see. And notice it says, in the day of his purification. So what follows is not a ritual of healing. The person is already healed. It is a ritual of purification, of reintroduction. So the ritual of purification is all about reintroduction. So what does that mean? It's more than just a reintroduction to the community. And that was really essential. The whole point was to reintroduce the people to the community. But it's more than that. It's a reintroduction into holy, into sacred. When we purify ourselves in our move towards, like ritual and observance, are we not going through steps to reintroduce ourselves to states of holiness? By candles, by washing, by all our individual observances, we are reintroducing sacred into our lives. We just don't realize it, and we rarely teach that that is what we are doing. But explaining why, instead of just saying do, allows each person to embrace ritual in the way it was meant to be. It brings back kavanah, intention. See, today, our impure are quite often the infirm. And so this is about bringing people back who are infirm, bringing them back into the community, into our community. And so today there's synagogues that have installed ramps to the bima for handicapped people, balloons for the deaf, so they can experience the vibrating sound of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. As we were once responsible to return and include those who were impure to the congregation, so we may learn to include those that we exclude as well. It is inspirational that we can derive this essential principle from a parsha in the Torah that seems so remote to readers in this age. What does it feel like to be an outcast? Many of you know. Some of you cannot imagine. The world has been a world of barrier, of differences, of exclusivity, not inclusivity. What can we each do to change it? The individual changes are what changes the world. How can you be an agent of change? What is one thing that you can do to break down the barriers that divide? On this day of transformation, in this week of creation of the life you want, what can you do? And all the cleansing and purification all takes place in a particular fashion. Forget about the sacrifices. We've not seen one since Second Temple times. Notice instead that all of these things that it talks about, and that we still do, the phrase that's used over and over again is over living water. Mayim Chayim. Almost all these rituals over living water. That's why things like mikvahs are so important. They are the cleansing apparatus of living water, a return to the primordial condition of our beginning, the separation of water from above and water from below. Now let's talk about Passover, because that's one of the rituals that's done. And I'm not talking about the blood on the doorposts or the burnt guilt or sin offerings. And that reminds me, a friend of mine once asked about my wife's cooking. And I said she had mastered the art of the burnt offering. All kidding aside, she's actually an amazing cook. But one of the key rituals is we wash our hands several times that night in an act of cleansing and recreating the moment of creation when we are free to choose how we want to live our lives. We live in a world now in which Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur have superseded Passover as the holiest day of the year. The transition from one to the other is fascinating, but to ancient man, this was the holy day. Rosh Hashanah was an unnamed holiday, simply the first day of the 7th month. And the 10th day of that month was the Day of Atonement, which was available through the priest pretty well any time you really needed it. Its significance is different, and we'll address it at its appropriate time. But this festival of unleavened bread was the bee's knees. It spoke of the ultimate power of God, who used this episode to make himself known. It promised man freedom from the fear that keeps him in chains. Fear is so pervasive in our lives, my friends. It robs people of independence, of love, of joy, of anticipation, of mobility, of time. This is the annual opportunity to free ourselves of any fears we have and to celebrate rebirth. It is the beginning of the year. You can move forward free of any self-imposed constraint and celebrate the beginning of life. My friends, while it is no longer the holiest day of the year, it is actually still the most observed. Surveys and studies have shown that if people were to maintain only one tradition from Judaism in their lives, it is the Seder. It is a family affair that brings education, example, celebration together. Yesterday, Exodus may seem so far away, but we believe that we were there that day. Oh, we believe in yesterday. Now, the Seder you observe is actually from Second Temple times. And while it is a great tradition, try one year to observe it as it is written. And to do so, you will not need the book you usually read. The name was not Passover, but the Festival of Unleavened Bread, because that is the food of the priest, the food of holiness. Pesach meant the halting, because God halted when he saw the sign of the blood on the doorposts. The 4 questions were only 3, and everything you need is contained within the foods you eat and the plate that you have it on. The world is sacred, so is everything in it. Express your gratitude. Light a candle, make a wish, celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free, honor your freedom. Be well, be happy, be blessed. Share and honor the light, and all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everybody you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone. And end to terror and hatred. Remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together, we celebrate each other, we love each other. We share this ride together, men and women equally. Let us send out love, not fear. Send out peace, harmony, good healing to all who need it. And please do learn to live in love. Learn to forgive. Open your hearts. Honor the relationships of your life. Tell those you love that you love them. When's the last time you told people you love them? Take advantage of the time you have. And remember the journey. It's all about your enjoyment. We take twists and turns in the patterns that weave through the fabric of our lives in our effort to grow, to learn, to be, to love. So please do love and share the light with all who live in the light and all who need the light. And send healing and love to all who need it. The time to celebrate freedom is now. The time to be reborn is now. What do you want? Who do you want to be? See the arrow on the doorpost saying this land is condemned, all the way from New Orleans to Jerusalem. Well, God is in heaven, and we all want what's his, but power and greed and corruptible seed seem to be all that there is. You can change it, my friends. That, of course, was Bob Dylan's Blind Willie McTell. Bless you all. Have a fantastic week, a week of love and light and peace and healing and thanks. Send your goodwill to those who need it. Get well, Hillary. Get well, Sherry. Hang on, Mordecai. I will see you in a couple of days. Keep on dreaming, keep being, keep teaching, keep sharing, keep shining, keep spreading your holiness, and thank you all for joining me. And if I do not see you next week, have a fantastic Festival of Freedom. But I do hope to see you because, we'll take some time and we will do a Seder, and we'll do a Seder the way it was supposed to be, and it'll be a little bit different for you. So I hope you all join me next week. Anyhow, Shabbat Shalom, have a fantastic time. Take care and enjoy the rest of your transformation time.